And today is day one of 3 of our Your Candidates, Your Questions segment.
Josh Matlow joined us earlier, but you can see Brad Bradford is on the couch right now. Brad, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
So let's talk about the campaign as it stands right now. You've seen the polls. I'm sure you have your own internal polls as well. But how do you sort of figure out where you go at this point? You're sort of in the single digits. It's kind of been that way for most of the campaign. What's your take on what's been going on over the last several weeks?
Well, I think to the point you were making earlier, we haven't actually seen a lot of movement in the polls over this entire election. We just had the CP24 debate last Thursday. Lots of action there, but you haven't seen that translate in the polls. And I was at the doors this weekend all over the city, and I can tell you people are starting to tune in. There's a lot of folks out there who are not necessarily interested in supporting Olivia Chow for mayor, and they're looking for that alternative. And when we take our message of less talk, more action, fighting for affordability, community safety, and unlocking the gridlock, that resonates. So I think, honestly, this is going to come down to the wire. People are going to be tuning in over the next 7 days as we're 1 week to go. And probably people will still be making up their mind next weekend and as they walk into the polls on Monday.
And they've got their questions, too.
Yeah, they certainly do. Our first one this morning coming in from Lisa, who asks, where are you going to get the money to pay for the subway platform safety gates? My understanding is that this is an exorbitant amount of money.
Well, I've been clear with voters right from the get-go. We are going to move forward with 4 of our busiest stations first. So the interchange stations, that's what I'm going to start with. City Hall has talked about this for more than a decade. Endless debate, deferral, delay. Nobody moves forward with anything. And it's because they're admiring the enormity of the problem. We have more than 70 stations across the system. We don't have to do them all at once. We can coordinate that with the capital works that's underway at Yonge and Bloor, for example, and do our busiest interchange stations. It's probably about $30 million per station, and we'll start with 4, demonstrate that it can be done, and improve safety immediately for Torontonians.
So kind of a phased-in approach
That's
there.
right.
Okay,
you don't have to do all 70 at once.
Yeah, right. Okay, so George has a question here. He's saying, as someone who's both a cyclist and a motorist, I see it from both sides, and I believe the city has gone too far in its effort to build bike lanes. I feel no credible plan to ease traffic congestion can exist without a commitment to removing bike lanes from major arteries like Bloor Street and Eglinton Avenue. Will you commit to prioritizing vehicular traffic on some important streets? And I know you're an avid cyclist yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I ride bikes all year round. That's primarily how I get around the city, but I also recognize that gridlock has never been worse in Toronto. And from day one of the campaign, I have been championing common sense solutions to get this city moving. So one of the big challenges when you look at Lakeshore right now, you've got 3 levels of government, the city, the province, the federal government, all doing major infrastructure projects. None of that is coordinated. Within the first 100 days, I will appoint a congestion relief commissioner so we stop tying up parallel streets in the downtown, grinding the city to a halt. We will redeploy 200 parking enforcement officers into the intersections during rush hour, because there's nothing more frustrating than sitting at a green light and somebody's blocked the box. And I will take Queen Street, for example, the streetcars and the work that's going underway. I'm going to move them down to King Street and coordinate all of the transit activity on Queen so that we keep Richmond and Adelaide open.
Okay. This next question is asking, the city is in a very deep fiscal hole right now, $1.5 billion to be precise. If the federal nor the provincial government bails out Toronto, what is your plan to get the city out of this deep fiscal hole? This question from our viewer, Diane.
Well, there's two components to this. One, we have to get more juice from the squeeze. The fact that the ferry terminal washrooms are not open at the same time the ferry is operating, that's not a money problem. That's a common sense and caring about the job problem. So I will usher in a new era of accountability at City Hall with mayor's mandate letters for our top civil servants. Every head of a division or an agency will be held to account publicly with a set of deliverables that they have to act on, and we'll hold them to account. And the other piece is common sense solutions like open tendering for our municipal construction projects here in the city. What that means is we're going to open that up to more unions, more workers, so that they can bid on those projects and save the taxpayer money, and also create more work opportunities and get projects done faster for Torontonians. Every other municipality in the province has moved forward with open tendering. Toronto continues to have a closed shop because of vested union interests from some select unions and backroom deals that were done with politicians. It's unacceptable. We can't afford it. I will save the city $200 million a year minimum by moving us forward with open tendering like every other city in Ontario.
Okay, all right. And, here's an interesting question we got from one of our viewers. This is from Michael. His question is this: what are your thoughts about pedestrian streets for Toronto? Our city has none.
There are some pedestrian streets actually in the downtown at different times. I understand you can look at a European model where they're 24/7 closed to pedestrians. You know, I think it's an idea where it makes sense in the right context. And there are parts of the core, in fact, different laneways in the downtown. You go behind Barvolo, for example, that effectively almost functions like a pedestrian street right now. And you can have a really nice atmosphere animated with arts and music and patio space. That's something that I think the city should look at in earnest. We've seen projects that have embraced that on a temporary basis over the years, but you know, there might be instances where we could do more of that in Toronto, and we shouldn't be afraid of those ideas where it makes sense.
All right, mayoral candidate Brad Bradford, thanks so much for stopping by this morning to answer our questions and our viewers' questions. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Always happy to be here with you.
Thanks so much.